The first thing Leo noticed was the silence. Not the usual quiet hum of his bedroom, but a deeper, unsettling absence. The familiar, gentle rustle of wood shavings, the frantic squeak of a tiny wheel spinning in the dark, the faint, earthy scent that was uniquely Barnaby's, all gone. He flicked on his bedside lamp, the sudden light harsh against the pre-dawn gloom. He scrambled out of bed, his heart already starting to quicken, a cold knot forming in the pit of his stomach. Barnaby's cage sat on his desk, meticulously clean as always, a small water bottle glistening, a full food dish waiting. Everything was as it should be, except for one crucial detail. The little metal door, usually latched securely, was ajar, and the cage itself was empty. Barnaby, his little golden hamster, his constant companion for the past year, was gone. A wave of panic, sharp and immediate, washed over Leo. He dropped to his hands and knees, frantically peering under his bed, his dresser, behind the overflowing laundry basket. He called Barnaby's name, a soft, pleading sound that felt utterly ridiculous even as he uttered it. He knew hamsters were masters of escape, tiny, furry Houdinis, but Barnaby had always been so content in his world of tunnels and seeds. He searched for what felt like hours, even though the clock on his wall barely ticked 5 a.m. The house was still dark, his parents asleep, blissfully unaware of the silent crisis unfolding in their son's room. The hollow ache of a first real loss began to settle in his chest. He imagined Barnaby lost in the vast, unknown territory of the house, perhaps under the fridge, or worse, caught somewhere. The thoughts grew darker with each passing minute. Eventually, exhaustion and a profound sense of defeat took over. He dragged himself back into bed, the empty cage a gaping wound in his room. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house creak, each sound amplifying his loneliness. He finally drifted into a fitful sleep, dreaming of tiny golden fur and a relentless whirring wheel. The next morning, the sun was streaming through his window when he finally opened his eyes. The first thing he saw, perched impossibly in the center of Barnaby's cage, was Barnaby. Or at least what looked like Barnaby. Leo sat bolt upright. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, and looked again. Yes, it was definitely Barnaby. The familiar golden fur, the tiny black bead eyes, the twitching nose. But something was off. Barnaby was larger, not enormously so, but noticeably, as if he'd been inflated ever so slightly. His fur seemed denser, perhaps, and his breathing. Instead of the quick, shallow breaths of a busy hamster, Barnaby's chest rose and fell in slow, deliberate, almost heavy movements. It was as if he were taking the deepest, most considered breaths, each one a conscious effort. Leo slowly, cautiously approached the cage. Barnaby didn't stir, didn't dart into his house, didn't even twitch his whiskers. He simply sat there, perfectly still, his eyes fixed on some point in the distance. Those tiny black eyes, usually bright with curiosity or a hint of mischief, now seemed flat, unblinking, and strangely, unnervingly profound. They stared not at him, but through him. They stared for too long. Leo reached a tentative finger towards the cage bars. Barnaby didn't react. He didn't scamper over for a treat, didn't nip playfully. He just sat, a golden statue of his former self. His wheel, untouched, stood silent. The food dish, still full from yesterday, remained ignored. For the rest of the day, Barnaby did nothing but sit and stare. No running, no burrowing, no gnawing. Just the slow, deliberate rise and fall of his chest, and those two long, unblinking gazes. A cold knot of unease began to twist in his stomach. This wasn't his Barnaby. This was something else, wearing Barnaby's fur. That night, the silence in Leo's room was different. It wasn't the absence of Barnaby, but the absence of his normal, lively hamster sounds. It was a thick, heavy silence, broken only by the occasional creak of the old house. Leo tried to read, but his eyes kept drifting to the silent cage, to the unmoving golden form within. Eventually, he turned out his light, the dim glow of his digital clock, the only source of light. He pulled his blanket up to his chin, trying to shake off the strange, creeping dread. He must have drifted off. It wasn't a dream. He awoke to a peculiar pressure on his chest, a light yet distinct weight. His eyes snapped open in the pit black. He couldn't see anything, but he could feel it. A small, soft, furry mass right in the center of his chest, just above his heart. A whisper, soft as the rustle of dry leaves, brushed against his ear. It was a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, a dry, raspy voice, utterly devoid of the usual high-pitched squeaks and chirps he associated with Barnaby. The words were chillingly clear, perfectly articulated, and carried a profound, world-weary sorrow that a hamster should never possess. Leo's breath hitched, his body went rigid, a scream caught in his throat. He couldn't move. He couldn't even close his eyes. He lay there, paralyzed, the weight on his chest, the phantom whisper still echoing in the silence. He didn't know how long he lay there, suspended between terror and disbelief. But when the first slivers of dawn crept through his window, casting faint shadows across his room, the weight was gone. Barnaby was back in his cage, sitting perfectly still, staring into the middle distance, his chest rising and falling in slow, heavy breaths. Leo never told anyone what he'd heard. How could he? Who would believe him? He eventually found a new home for Barnaby with a family who had a large, quiet yard and no other pets. He didn't want to watch Barnaby anymore. He couldn't. The experience left an indelible mark on Leo. It changed the way he saw the world, the thin veil between life and what lies beyond. It taught him that some things, once lost, should perhaps remain lost, and that sometimes the quietest things hold the most profound and unsettling secrets. This story, like so many others, reminds us that the world holds mysteries far stranger than we can often imagine, tucked away in the most unexpected corners, sometimes even in a small, golden hamster cage. What are your thoughts on Leo's unsettling encounter? Have you ever experienced something that defied explanation? Share your stories and perspectives in the comments below. And if you found yourself captivated by this tale, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories that explore the quiet, strange, and wondrous corners of our world. Until next time, keep your eyes and your mind open.